You see photographs, giant stone heads staring from a remote island. Social media calls them Easter Island heads. Museums display replicas. Tourism brochures promise mystery. But walk the slopes of Rano-Raraku and you understand nothing was what it seemed. Those heads have bodies. Bodies buried 20 feet down. Bodies carved with symbols nobody alive can read. Bodies that walked. 2,200 miles west of Chile sits a volcanic speck. 163 square kilometers, Rapa Nui, Easter Island, the most isolated inhabited place on Earth. Polynesian navigators found it sometime between 1150 and 1280. They brought sweet potatoes, chickens, and the knowledge to carve monuments from compressed volcanic ash. Between 1250 and 1650, they carved nearly 1,000 moai, statues that average 4 meters tall, statues that weigh 12.5 tons each. Some reach 10 meters, some weigh 82 tons. One unfinished giant measures 21 meters, and would have weighed 165 tons if completed. The Dutch arrived in 1722. By then, every standing moai had fallen. The Spanish came in 1770. The British in 1868. Peruvian slavers took 1,500 people in 1862. By 1877, only 111 Rapa Nui survived. With them died the knowledge of how the statues moved and what the carvings meant. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from the Journal of Archaeological Science, published November 2025, the PLOS-1 study from November 26, 2020. 5. Documenting the three-dimensional model created from 11,686 drone photographs of Rano-Raraku Quarry, and Nature Scientific reports from February 2, 2024, with radiocarbon dating of Rongorongo. Tablets. Now back to the information. She excavates 30 statues. Every single one has a torso, arms carved in bas-relief, long fingers resting on bellies. Some torsos extend 7 meters underground. The internet explodes in 2012 when Joanne Van Tilburg's excavation photos go viral. 3 million hits crashed the Easter Island Statue Project website. People thought they were just heads. They had been heads in every photograph for a century. 150 statues at Rano-Raraku stand buried to their shoulders. Those became the famous shots. Those defined the icon. But 500 years of erosion had buried them. Rocks and soil washed down from the upper quarries. Rain carved gullies. Sediment built up meter by meter. Van Tilburg's team excavated 2 statues in 2010 through 2013. One stood on a pedestal. One sat in a deep circular post hole. The post hole was designed for a tree trunk, ropes attached to trunk and statue. The trunk levered the moai upright. The front was carved while the statue lay on its back. The rear was finished after it stood. These weren't abandoned projects waiting for transport. These were intentionally placed monuments inside the sacred quarry itself. Soil samples from around the statues contained banana phytoliths, taro starch grains, and sweet potato remains. Rano-Raraku wasn't just a quarry. It was a productive agricultural zone. The moai standing inside the crater stimulated fertility. They were Aringa ora, living faces. The buried sections preserved details lost on exposed surfaces. Yellow volcanic tuff retained its polish. Petroglyphs stayed crisp. 3 band reliefs at waist height represented the hammy, the loincloth. Some showed an M-shaped pattern below. These Maro carvings appeared on multiple excavated bodies. Alongside them, cruder symbols were etched later by unknown hands. Near one statue, Van Tilburg's team found human remains and large amounts of red pigment. The same ochre used on the statues appeared in burial contexts. The Moai weren't just ancestors. They were active participants in ritual. They measured 962 Moai. 62 were road Moai, statues abandoned along ancient transport paths. Every road Moai shared 3 features: wide D-shaped bases, forward lean of 5 to 15 degrees, no eye sockets. The Ahu Moai, the ones that reached ceremonial platforms, had narrow bases, stood vertical, and had carved eye sockets. 2 different engineering solutions. The road Moai were designed to move. In 2013, Lipo and Hunt built a concrete replica, 4.35 tons, exact proportions from a road Moai. 18 people, 3 ropes, 100 meters in 40 minutes. The statue rocked side to side in a controlled zigzag. The forward lean created an inverted pendulum. Lateral oscillation converted to forward progress. Each step averaged 89 centimeters. The D-shaped base provided the pivot point. The curved front edge prevented toppling backward. Physics models confirmed the design. 15 to 60 people to start movement depending on size. 5 to 25 to maintain it. Larger statues moved more efficiently because the design scaled. The roads themselves told the story. 4.5 meters wide, slightly concave in cross-section, perfect for guiding upright wobbling statues, terrible for sleds. The concave shapes stabilized the rocking motion. New roads were cleared as statues advanced. Parallel and overlapping routes crisscrossed the landscape. The Moai and the roads formed one integrated system. Distribution patterns confirmed transport failures. 43% of fallen road Moai lay within 1 kilometer of Rano Raraku. 65% within 2 kilometers, an exponential decay curve. Exactly what mechanical failure predicts. The closer to the quarry, the higher the risk. Once a statue fell, it stayed down. Fracture patterns aligned with vertical impact stress. These Moai broke falling from standing positions, not from being dragged. The hypothesis aligned with oral tradition. Rapa Nui elders always said the Moai walked. They had a song with rhythm and tempo matching the rocking motion. The song coordinated the teams pulling left and right. When the statue reached its ahu, the base was recarved. The wide curve was trimmed. The forward lean was adjusted. Eye sockets were carved. Coral eyes with obsidian or red scoria pupils were inserted. The statue transformed from transport mode to ritual mode, from moving object to living face. Lipo's team publishes the 3-dimensional model of Rano Raraku, 11,686 photographs taken in January 2024, 30 drone flights. The model resolve features down to the centimeter. 426 Moai in varying completion stages, 341 trenches outlining blocks, 133 voids where statues were removed, 5 bollards for lowering Moai down slopes, 30 distinct quarrying zones. Each zone showed different extraction methods, different finishing techniques, different carving sequences. Some carved faces first, some carved bodies first, some carved top down, some carved from the side. The variations weren't random. They represented independent family groups, different clans working their own territories. No centralized management, no elite directing production, no standardized techniques. The pattern matched Rapa Nui social structure. Small, autonomous kin groups. No paramount chief until late, no political unification. The Moai weren't monuments to hierarchy. They were monuments to decentralized cooperation. Each clan wanted their ancestors represented. Each clan commissioned their own statues. Each clan negotiated with carvers. Payment came in sweet potatoes, chickens, bananas, obsidian tools, bark cloth. Bigger statues cost more. Bigger statues demonstrated wealth and mana. The quarry boundaries were respected. No overlap, no conflict. Just 30 workshops humming simultaneously for 4 centuries. The model shattered assumptions. Big monuments don't require kings. Big monuments don't require centralized power. Big monuments require shared belief and coordinated effort. The Rapa Nui built nearly 1,000 Moai without a state, without bureaucracy, without coercion. They did it through culture. 100 pukao documented. 70 toppled near Ahu platforms. 30 still at Puna Pau Quarry. Puna Pau sits 7 kilometers from Rano Raraku. A different volcanic crater, a different stone. Red scoria instead of yellow-gray tuff. The pukao weren't made until the 15th or 16th centuries. Late additions. Not all Moai received them. Only select statues on major ceremonial ahu. The pukao represented hair or headdresses, top knots. In Polynesian belief, mana resided in the head. More hair meant more mana. The cylindrical stones measured 2 to 3 meters in diameter, 2 to 2.6 meters tall. They weighed 6 to 12 tons. The largest, near Ahu Te Pito Kura, weighed nearly 12 tons. Each pukao was rough-shaped at the quarry, a cylinder with a dent on the underside. The dent fit the Moai's head. The fit wasn't centered. It protruded forward over the eyes like a visor. Some had a small protuberance on top, a knot. Once transported, the pukao was finished on site. Details carved, surface polished, size adjusted to the specific Moai. How did 12-ton cylinders reach the tops of 10-meter statues? The base indentations and ring marks suggest ramps, logs laid in a ramp configuration. The oblong pukao rolled up easier than they rolled down. The forward protrusion prevented backward sliding. Some researchers propose pulleys, but no evidence supports that. The ramps make sense. Earth and rock piled against the statue. The pukao rolled or levered to the top. The ramp dismantled afterward. It required only several people according to physics models. The real mystery is why. Why add pukao centuries after Moai production began? One theory links them to escalating competition. As clans rivaled each other, they made their ahu more elaborate. Bigger Moai, red top knots, more impressive ancestors. Another theory ties them to the shift toward the Birdman cult. The Tangata Manu religion emerged around the same time. Power through athletic competition rather than ancestral lineage. The pukao might mark the transition, a last gasp of ancestor worship before the old religion faded. Either way, they represent late-stage monument building, a society pushing boundaries, making statements right before everything changed. Team member Sonia Hawa finds an oval white object, coral, a hole in the center. A piece of polished red scoria fits the hole. Rapu places it in a Moai eye socket. Perfect fit. He identifies it as an eye. Between 1979 and 1990, more eyes surface. Fragments at Anakena, behind the retaining wall. Pieces at Vinapu. Pieces at Tongariki. Eyes from the 1950s expedition finally identified in European museums by Helena Martinson Wallen in 1989 and 1990. All Moai with carved eye sockets once held coral eyes, white coral sclera. Black obsidian or red scoria pupils. The eyes were removable, ceremonial objects used on special occasions, not permanent fixtures. By the time Europeans arrived in 1722, the ancestor cult was dying or dead. The eyes were gone. Only sockets remained. Early visitors drew the statues with empty stares. That became the image, blind giants. But originally they watched. They saw. Inserting the eyes was the final act, the ritual that conferred Oringa aura, living face. The statue transformed from stone to ancestor, from object to agent. The ceremony probably happened when the Moai reached its ahu, after transport, after final carving, after erection. The eyes activated the mana. Some Moai never received eye sockets. 4 at Ahu Aroi, 2 at Ahu Hanga Tetenga, 1 at Ahu Hanua Nuamea, others as well. These might be earlier period statues, or statues that didn't complete the journey. Or statues not allocated to ceremonial platforms. The presence of carved sockets indicates final destination. The Moai was meant to stand and watch. In 2012, the Rapa Nui used replica coral eyes in a ceremony welcoming Polynesian catamarans. From New Zealand, traditional voyaging canoes navigating by stars. The eyes came out of storage. The Moai watched the canoes arrive. Past and present merged. The living face ritual continues. If you're following along with the evidence, this is about halfway through. Subscribe to support more documented history. Comment where you're watching from. Now back to the mysteries. 24 wooden objects survive. Tablets, a staff, a statuette, 2 Remiro ornaments. Most are fragments. Burned, weathered, damaged. Fewer than 15,000 characters total. About 120 base glyphs. 480 variants. The glyphs depict birds, fish, plants, humans, geometric shapes. They're carved in reverse Baustrophodon. Start bottom left, read left to right, rotate the tablet 180 degrees, read the next line. Alternate. No spaces, no punctuation. Dense, continuous script. Eugene Era described them in 1864. Wooden tablets and staffs covered with hieroglyphic characters. By the 1870s, no islander could read them. Peruvian slavers took the literate elite in 1862. Survivors died in epidemics. Knowledge vanished in one generation. Bishop Jossen in Tahiti worked with Matoro Taua Ure between 1869 and 1874. Matoro recited chants for 4 tablets, but nobody knows if he was reading or remembering, if the glyphs prompted memory or represented language. William Malloy tried in the 1950s. Thomas Barthel identified 599 signs in the 1950s. Countless decipherments have been claimed, none accepted. One section might be a lunar calendar, possibly genealogical information, but the text can't be read. February 2, 2024. Ferrara's Team Radiocarbon dates 4 tablets in Rome. 3 date to the 19th century, 1 dates to the mid-15th century, 1493 to 1509. 200 years before Europeans arrived. The wood is Podocarpus latifolia, a tree from southeastern Africa. Not native to Rapa Nui, probably driftwood. The inscription might be contemporary with the wood or added later. Either way, it proves Rongorongo existed before contact. It wasn't inspired by European writing. The glyphs bear no resemblance to European letters. If Rongorongo is true writing and independently invented, it's one of maybe 5 independent inventions in human history. Sumerian, Egyptian, Chinese, Mesoamerican, Rongorongo. But that requires proving the glyphs represent Rapa Nui language, that they encode speech, not just mnemonic devices, not just proto-writing. The evidence is weak. Different tablet categories couldn't be read by experts in other categories. That suggests either Rongorongo isn't unified, or it requires prior knowledge of the text. Oral accounts say literacy was restricted, ruling families, priests. They were all kidnapped or died. The Tangata Rongorongo, the chanters, the knowledge holders, gone. The island has over 4,000 petroglyphs, some similar to Rongorongo, some cruder, some painted red and white, but petroglyphs aren't text. They're images, symbols. The Rongorongo tablets might be the same, complex symbol systems that look like writing but function differently. Or they might be writing and will never crack the code. 15,000 characters isn't enough. Not without a bilingual text, not without living speakers. The Rosetta Stone worked because Greek was known. Rongorongo has no parallel. The language is almost dead. The script is completely dead. What remains is beautiful and frustrating. Rows of tiny glyphs carved into Pacific rosewood and driftwood, messages from the 15th or 19th century that nobody will read. 145 to 165 tons if completed, still attached to bedrock by the keel along its back. It lies in Rano Raraku's inner crater, the largest Moai ever attempted, carved from the cliff face top down. The head nearly finished, the face detailed, the body outlined, the arms indicated. Then it stopped. Why? The statue exceeded transport limits. Lipo stated some statues exceeded practical transport limits. No team could walk Tetokanga. The physics don't work at that mass. The D-shaped base and forward lean only scale so far. Past a certain weight, the rocking motion fails. The statue topples. The crew loses control. It's possible the carvers knew this. Possible they carved Tetokanga as a demonstration. See what we can do. See our mastery, or they intended to leave it in place. A permanent fixture in the sacred quarry. The ultimate ancestor frozen in stone, rising from the volcano itself. Or they miscalculated. Started carving, realized halfway through it would never move. Abandoned it. Other unfinished Moai pepper the quarry. Statues at every stage, outlined, roughed out, nearly complete, missing final details. Missing separation from bedrock. The quarry wasn't abandoned suddenly. It wasn't a catastrophe. It was normal production. Some statues were always in progress. Some were always finished. Some were always being separated and lowered. Production continued until the early 1700s, possibly later. Western contact disrupted everything. Diseases killed carvers. Social structure collapsed. The ancestor cult faded. By 1722, the standing Moai were toppling. Clan wars, ritual destruction, power struggles. The Birdman cult replaced the Moai cult. Athletic competition replaced lineage. Tangata Manu replaced Aringa Ora. The unfinished statues stayed unfinished, not because of sudden collapse. Because the system changed. The religion changed. The statues lost meaning. Tetokanga sits as testimony, not to failure, to ambition, to the drive to make ancestors bigger, to push engineering to its limits, to declare we are here and we remember. Number 8. The quarry roads that contradict the collapse narrative, the concave roads, the parallel routes, the overlapping paths, they tell a story, not of frantic labor, not of ecological disaster, of continuous low-level production over centuries. The roads average 4.5 meters wide. They snake from Rano Raraku to the coast. They avoid steep grades where possible. They maintain gentle 2 to 3% slopes. They're engineered. Intentionally graded, prepared for walking Moai. The U-shaped cross-section guides the statue, keeps it centered, prevents runaway rocking. As crews moved a statue, they cleared new sections, extended the road, worked gradually toward the destination. This wasn't industrial production. This was cultural production. Each statue took months to carve, more months to transport. The journey might be 17 kilometers, might take weeks, multiple crews, multiple rest stops, multiple adjustments. If the statue fell, the crew likely tried to re-erect it. Some fallen road Moai show excavation marks around their bases, attempts to dig underneath, to lever them upright. Some succeeded, some failed. The fallen statues that couldn't be raised were left. They marked the route. They testified to the difficulty. They might have become wayside shrines. Over half the road, Moai lie within 2 kilometers of the quarry, the densest cluster. The highest failure rate, the heaviest statues, the steepest initial slope, the least experience. First kilometer is where crews lost control, got the rocking wrong, let the statue tip too far, couldn't recover. Beyond 2 kilometers, the failure rate drops. Crews got better, the terrain flattened. The rhythm was established. Most statues that survived the first 2 kilometers reached their ahu. The road system proves sustained effort. Not frenzied over exploitation, not desperate last gasps, continuous cultural investment. From 1250 to 1700, 450 years of carving and moving. That's 16 generations if you count 30 years per generation. 16 generations of families making ancestors, of clans competing peacefully, of a society that worked. The ecological collapse narrative says they deforested the island, moving Moai on wooden rollers, cut all the trees, caused erosion, destroyed agriculture, starved, fought, collapsed. But the rollers don't fit the evidence. The statues walked. The roads prove it. Walking required ropes, minimal wood, no deforestation. Rats ate the palm seeds. Rats prevented regeneration. Humans cleared some forest for agriculture, but the Moai didn't destroy the island. The island sustained the Moai for centuries. Members of Comunidad Indigene Mau Henua survey the dry lake bed of Rano Raraku. They find a Moai lying face up, 1.6 meters long, hidden under tall reeds, first Moai ever found in a lake. The crater lake dried over 2 years, climate change. Extended drought, La Nina, triple dip, temperatures rising, rainfall declining. The lake was one of 3 freshwater sources on the island. It had held water for centuries. By 2023, it was gone, and the reeds died back. The lake bed appeared. The Moai appeared. Salvador Atanhito stated nobody knew it existed, not the current community, not the ancestors, not the grandparents. The statue was finished, eye sockets carved, flat base not sloped. It was meant to stand and display, not to transport. Probably erected in or near the lake, possibly on the crater rim, fell or was placed in the water. Sediment covered it, reeds hid it for centuries. Terry Hunt arrived one day after the discovery. Good Morning America filmed the story. Hunt examined the statue. He noted the eye sockets, the finishing details, the completed state. He speculated more Moai might be in the lake bed. When there's one, there's probably more. Ground-penetrating radar could detect subsurface statues, but the dry soil limits radar effectiveness. Electrical imaging worked better in previous surveys. Hunt proposed documenting the entire lake bed before it potentially refills. The drought won't last forever. The lake might return. The window is limited. The discovery proves incomplete documentation. 900 plus Moai recorded, more likely hidden, buried in sediment, covered by vegetation. Lost in collapsed caves or trenches, the island keeps revealing. Joanne Van Tilburg stated there would be more discoveries, 100%. Between 2018 and 2019, her team mapped the quarry extensively. They found more evidence of external quarrying than expected. The Lake Moai challenges assumptions. Why place a statue in a crater? Was it ritual? Was it display? Was it accidental? Did it fall during transport? Did someone push it in? Did earthquake or erosion topple it? The Rapa Nui left no written records, no explanations, only oral traditions and the statues themselves. Each discovery raises questions. The Lake Moai is unique, unprecedented, significant scientifically and culturally. The Mau Henua community won't move it. The elders want it left in place. Respect for context, respect for ancestors, respect for discovery conditions. Climate change revealed it. Climate change threatens it. Exposure accelerates weathering. Conservation efforts are underway, stabilization plans, protection measures, but resources are limited. The island economy depends on tourism. 8,000 residents. 100,000 visitors per year before COVID. The Moai draw them. The Moai sustain them. The Moai need protection. It's a cycle, a balance, a challenge. That means controlled, regulated, reserved for ceremonies. Oral traditions confirm this. Only Tangata Rongorongo and ruling families handled the eyes. Only special occasions warranted their use. The Moai stood empty-eyed most of the time. Blind stone guardians. During rituals, the eyes were brought out, placed carefully in the sockets. The white coral glowed. The obsidian or red scoria pupils focused. The Moai came alive. They watched. They participated. They activated their mana. The ceremony transformed the statue. Stone became ancestor. Ancestor became god. The god watched over the community, protected crops, ensured fertility, maintained cosmic order. When the ceremony ended, the eyes were removed, stored safely, protected. Probably kept by priests or chiefs, possibly buried in sacred locations. The archaeological finds support this. Eyes scattered behind Ahu retaining walls, eyes in burial contexts, eyes mixed with offerings, not casually discarded, carefully deposited. The restriction made sense. Coral wasn't abundant, obsidian was valuable. Scoria required quarrying and polishing. Each eye set represented investment, work, resources, skill, and power. The ability to activate the Moai belonged to elites. The ability to grant Aringa Ora was political, spiritual, social. It reinforced hierarchy. The statue might belong to a clan, but the ritual belonged to the priesthood. This pattern appears across Polynesia. Chiefs mediate between people and gods. Priests control sacred objects. Rituals require specialists. The Rapa Nui system likely followed this model until it didn't, until the Birdman cult emerged. Athletic competition replaced hereditary power. Tangata Manu replaced Aringa Ora. The egg race determined leadership. The Moai lost relevance. The eyes lost purpose. They were hidden or lost. By 1722, European visitors saw empty sockets. They described the statues as blind, as abandoned, as evidence of a fallen civilization. They missed the truth. The Moai were sleeping. waiting for eyes that would never return. Number 11. The Punapau puzzle. How did heavy cylinders roll uphill? Punapau quarry sits at elevation 7 kilometers northeast of Hangaroa, a parasitic cone of Maunga Teravaca, the youngest volcano. Inside the crater red scoria. Porous volcanic rock, lightweight compared to the dense tuff of Rano Raraku, but still heavy, still challenging. The Pukau were rough-shaped at Punapau, large cylinders 2 to 3 meters across, then transported to the Ahu, then finished on site. The transport route was longer than for Moai, 7 to 15 kilometers depending on destination. The cylinders presumably rolled, their shape suggests it, the ring indentations support it. The oblong geometry means they roll uphill easier than down. Forward protrusion prevents backsliding. But roll how exactly? On roads? On grass? On bare rock? And how many people? The physics are different than for Moai. Cylinders don't walk. They roll, or are carried, or are sledded. Each method requires different infrastructure, different crew sizes, different techniques. Researchers have modeled rolling scenarios, teams with ropes guiding the cylinder. Ramps or levees channeling direction, stops and starts, incremental progress. Sean Hickson's 2018 study scanned 50 Pukau, created 3-dimensional models, analyzed common features, found indentations and base shapes consistent with rolling up ramps. Log ramps, earth ramps, whatever worked. The alternative is sleds, dragging the cylinders on wooden frames. That requires more wood, more people, more effort. The rolling hypothesis is more efficient, more elegant, more in line with Rapa Nui engineering philosophy. Use the stone's properties, work with gravity not against it, minimal resources, maximum result. But we don't know for certain. No ancient road survives showing Pukau transport routes. No historical account describes the process. Just the finished product, red cylinders balanced on gray heads, an engineering marvel, a cultural statement. A late-stage innovation that marked the peak of monument complexity right before the system changed. Bureaucracies, centralized control. The pyramids needed pharaohs. Stonehenge needed chiefs. The Moai needed an island-wide authority. November 26, 2025. That assumption dies. LiPo's 3-dimensional model shows 30 independent workshops, 30 separate production zones, 30 different techniques, no standardization, no oversight, no elite control. Each workshop belonged to a family, a clan, a kin group. They carved their own ancestors, commissioned their own statues, paid their own carvers, transported their own Moai, erected their own Ahu. They competed peacefully, made bigger statues, better statues, more impressive platforms. But they didn't fight, didn't consolidate, didn't centralize. They cooperated through culture, through shared belief, through the ancestor system. The Moai weren't monuments to power, they were monuments to community, to kinship. To belief that ancestors watch over the living, that mana flows through lineage, that the dead protect the living if the living remember the dead. This changes everything. Big monuments don't require hierarchy. Big monuments don't require coercion. Big monuments require shared purpose. The Rapa Nui achieved what few societies achieve: large-scale cooperation without a state, sustained effort without bureaucracy, cultural continuity without central authority. They did it for 450 years, 16 generations, nearly 1,000 statues, dozens of Ahu, hundreds of kilometers of roads, all without a king. The workshops prove it. 30 separate zones, 30 separate operations. 30 separate expressions of the same cultural logic. Make ancestors. Stand them on Ahu. Let them watch. Let them protect. Let them connect past to present to future. This is the real mystery of the Moai. Not how they moved. Not how they were carved. But how a small population on a remote island sustained such effort for so long without centralized power. The answer is culture, belief, kinship, systems stronger than kings. Sediment cores from Rano Kau and Rano Aroi tell a new story. Between 1550 and 1720, a severe drought hit the island, centuries long. Hydrogen isotopes and plant leaf waxes prove it. Annual precipitation dropped, stayed low. Freshwater sources dwindled, agriculture stressed. The cultural response? The Birdman cult emerged, Tangata Manu. Athletic competition replaced ancestral lineage. The center of power shifted from Moai Ahu to the crater rim of Rano Kau. New rituals, new hierarchy, new source of legitimacy. The Moai didn't cause collapse, climate did. The Rapa Nui adapted. They changed their religion, their politics, their landscape use. They survived. Population estimates suggest 6,000 to 8,000 people at contact. Smaller than some estimates, but stable, sustainable, resilient. The ecocide narrative is wrong. The island didn't collapse, it transformed. Yes, the forests disappeared. Rats ate palm seeds. Humans cleared land for agriculture. By 1650, the island was largely treeless, but seafood remained abundant. Sweet potatoes thrived. Chickens provided protein. The Rapa Nui survived for over 500 years after settlement. They built monuments. They maintained traditions. They adapted to drought. What collapsed was Western contact, diseases, slavery, violence. By 1877, the population dropped to 111. That's collapse. But it wasn't from Moai. It was from colonialism. The mysteries remain because the collapse destroyed knowledge. The Tangata Rongorongo died. The priests died. The chiefs died. The chanters died. The carvers died. The knowledge holders died. What survived? The stones. 900 plus Moai. Hundreds of ahu. Thousands of petroglyphs. Rongorongo tablets scattered in museums. Oral traditions passed through survivors and questions. How did they walk 21-meter statues? Why bury some in the quarry? What do the Rongorongo say? How did Pukao reach the tops? Why place eyes only sometimes? What's hidden in the lake bed? What's buried under reeds and sediment? What happened in the 16th century that shifted everything? The lake that held water for centuries vanished, exposed the lake bed, revealed the Moai. Tall reeds died, sediment surface appeared. The statue lay face up, small by Moai standards, 1.6 meters, finished, eye sockets carved. Meant to stand and watch, but hidden, unknown, even to the grandparents, even to the ancestors. The community gathered, recognized the significance, decided to leave it in place, respect the discovery, honor the context. Let it testify to what climate reveals and what climate threatens, because the drought won't last forever. The lake might return, the statue might vanish again, or the exposure might destroy it. Weathering, erosion, vandalism. Conservation is expensive, resources are limited, the island struggles. But the Moai endure. They've endured 500 years of weather, 200 years of colonialism, decades of tourism. They'll endure this. They were built to last. Built to watch, built to remember. And we finally understand they weren't just built, they were walked, carved by families, transported by communities, erected by clans, without kings, without states. Without the hierarchy we assume monuments require. The Moai prove culture is stronger than power. Belief is stronger than coercion. Memory is stronger than authority. The Rapa Nui remembered their ancestors, made them in stone. Walked them across the island, stood them on platforms, gave them eyes, let them watch, for 16 generations, until drought and contact changed everything. But the stones remain, the mysteries remain, and the answers keep emerging. From drone flights and physics models, from three-dimensional scans and radiocarbon dates, from dried lake beds and excavated torsos, from workshops and roads and fracture patterns, each answer reveals new questions. Each discovery reframes the story. The Moai walked. We know that now. But where were they walking to? What were they walking toward? What vision drove 16 generations to carve stone ancestors and march them across volcanic slopes? The answer isn't in the statues. It's in what the statues represent. Connection, continuity, belief that the dead protect the living, that ancestors matter, that remembering is sacred, that stone can hold spirit, that culture can move mountains, or in this case, walk them. A 2,000-year-old Moai excavation reveals more than buried torsos and carved loincloths. It reveals teeth marks and bones found nearby, red pigment in burial soil, pottery shards showing when, stone tools showing how. And at the base, in the deepest excavation layer, something nobody expected. A post hole, 2 meters deep, circular, empty, waiting 2 meters deep, circular, empty. Waiting for a tree trunk that would lever 20 tons of carved volcanic stone into standing position so the rear could be finished and the ancestors could watch. The hole is the proof, the evidence that what oral tradition claimed was true. They didn't drag the Moai. They walked them upright using minimal wood and maximum intelligence. They placed them using posts and ropes, not cranes and armies. They finished them in place, not in the quarry. And they buried the placement mechanism under sediment where it waited for Catherine Routledge to dig in 1914 and Van Tilburg to document in 2010, and the rest of us to finally understand. The Moai didn't require impossible technology. They required elegant solutions. Rapa Nui solutions, Polynesian solutions, solutions that respected stone and slope and gravity and worked with them, not against them. Solutions that prove ancient engineers were just as smart as modern ones, sometimes smarter, because we would build roads and use machines and require infrastructure. They built roads while moving the statues. Used the statues to create the infrastructure, required only rope and rhythm and belief. That's not primitive, that's genius.